right, I'm currently on the phone with Jordan. He's another musician that reached out about the current interview session. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the chance to introduce himself.
What's going on? My name is Jordan Greene. I am the guitarist of the band Mob Day based out of New York. And thanks for having me today.
All right, and thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. So let's go ahead and get started into how this all began for you. Tell me about what it was like growing up and identifying that you wanted to participate in music. What was that environment like for you?
My parents listened to really cool stuff, so like music was always around the house when I was a kid. They didn't play or anything, and I didn't even know you could play music for the longest time. I just thought it was something that was cool. I liked listening to. I was more into sports, but music was always involved in that. Like I would listen to it before playing or, going around my bike or whatever. But then it was seeing Korn, their video for Freak on a Leash, when it kind of hit me like, oh, like I can actually take part in this. I could do that, because they kind of looked like me and I identified with the sound and they looked awesome doing it. So I was like, shit, that looks fun.
So once you kind of reached that kind of point where you decided that you could do that too, how did you go about that? Did you already kind of had an instrument in mind that you wanted to pursue, or was it kind of a exploration process of figuring out if you liked drums or guitar?
Yeah, guitar looked cool. It was definitely the most intimidating. It looked hard to play. And drums, I kind of always... I'd do drum beats like on my lap when I was just sitting around. So it seemed kind of natural, and they had those in the school band. So I was kind of able to get my way in there and just started playing drums for about a year. And then guitar came in about a year after that. And then it's kind of just been both of those side by side from there on out.
Okay, I didn't mean to expressly call both of those out so directly.
No, it's totally cool. Yeah, it worked out.
Yeah, that worked out. All right, so tell me about that learning process. You said that drums kind of helped you get into the school learning environment. I assume you're referring to like concert band, jazz band, that type of thing.
Yeah, and I learned how to read drum music there, which that didn't really end up playing a huge role in my development. It was nice having that skill, but what it really helped with is I was able to hear what the drums sounded like. So when I would listen to songs, I could now identify what that was. And that's kind of how I learned. And same with guitar. I didn't have books or anything, didn't take any lessons. I just kind of sat with it, and it's like, that sounds like that. So I'd find it on the fretboard or on the drum kit, and then I would just kind of piece it together from there. It was a really, really long process when I was younger. It's a lot faster now.
So you mentioned that a lot of it was kind of like book-based, where you were kind of just figuring it out that way. Did you also have like private lessons or anything like that, or was it all kind of self-directed?
Yeah, it was all self-taught. I guess you could say I took some lessons. Like in college, I had to take a guitar course, just more because it was mandatory. It was a classical thing too, which was cool, but I didn't incorporate too much of that into my style. But as far as like actual consistent lessons, no, I never had anything like that. So I often say that my teachers were like my favorite bands. I would just put the CDs on and spend all night in my bedroom just trying to figure out songs I liked.
Sure. So when you say putting the CDs on and just playing along to them, would you say that it was mostly kind of learning by ear that way, or did you also kind of have the tabs to go along with, or was it all just figuring it out on your own?
It was by ear on my own at first, and then a friend of mine introduced me to tabs and explained to me how to read them, and I was like, wow, I've been doing this wrong for a long time. So
Okay,
that
sure.
definitely made things easier, and it allowed me to learn more songs faster too. So that was really cool. So instead of learning one song a week, which was really rewarding doing it by ear, I could suddenly, possibly pick up on like a whole album's worth of stuff, depending, how easy it was.
Okay, so tell me about how that existed in your personal life outside of like school. Did you start looking for like a contemporary band lineup while you were in school and learning the instruments, or did that come later?
Yeah, I think I did right away. I picked up the guitar around 12, drums at 11. And I think by 13, I was in my first band. And how that started is we had like an open mic at my school one night, and I brought the guitar. I didn't even know how to really play a full song that I wanted to play there. I just asked this dude who had cool hair if he heard of this song, and he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, sing it for me." And I didn't even know if he was a singer. So we just kind of got up on stage and totally made fools of ourselves, I think. But then we started a band after that, and that was my first band. And I ended up playing drums for that, even though I played guitar with him at that open mic, because turns out he was making a band and he had a drum set that was vacant for a drummer that wanted to come and play it. And I felt more comfortable on drums back then. So that's how that got started.
All right. And so that kind of sets you down the pathway of, joining and looking for different bands and stuff. How many iterations of different bands do you think you've been through to kind of lead up to where you are now?
Man, I don't even know. Once I got that first show out of the way, like I never looked back. Anybody that would have me, I would just go and jam with them, try to play with anybody. Yeah, I'd have to sit down and think about how many bands I've been through, but serious ones that have actually stuck around for a substantial amount of time. There's probably a good like 5 to 10 of those, but
Okay.
yeah,
So,
I always had my hands in something.
so tell me a little bit about how you have found those bands. Has it been all through like the open mic nights, or was it Craigslist and Facebook ads, or were you going to shows finding people?
Yeah, it was just back when I was a teenager, it was just going to shows and meeting people. And, if my band was on a show, I'd meet some other bands and I'd end up playing with one or two of those guys. And it's kind of how it started. And now I just, I've known a few people for a long time. So you kind of develop a reputation as being a guy that they can go to. And, now I can get calls for some cool stuff. And yeah, it's just kind of, meeting people. That's been it.
Sure, that's how the whole world goes around. All right, so tell me about how that all kind of coalesced into what your current project is.
Yeah, so Mob Day, I guess, kind of stemmed out of a band that I was in high school. I was playing drums for that band, but I was writing a lot of the guitar parts, and there were a few that I wanted to try out with some different tunings that we weren't really experimenting in, and the sound was evolving a bit too. Like that band, we mixed everything from like hardcore to hip hop and jazz. We were just trying to be weird. We were trying to be Mr. Bungle and failing miserably. But then I started writing these more like Every Time I Die type inspired riffs that I wanted to play guitar on. So then I met a guy in college named Eric, who was a drummer. And again, I thought he looked cool. He had a hoodie on that I thought was neat, and he liked my hoodie too. So we just got talking, and then that's how Mob Day began. It was me and him. And yeah, that was 2005. So there's been a few lineup changes over the years, but really Mob Day's been a thing for 20 years, and it's kind of been my main thing for that long.
And has it just been you and the main guy there, and then a revolving door of everybody to fill out the lineup kind of thing?
It's been just me consistently. Eric was with us for about 7 years, and then we got our current drummer, Ty. He came in 2012, and he's pretty much been there since. He took a couple years off to play with some other guys, some friends of ours, but I think Ty's been with me the longest, but as far as original members, yeah, it's just me since the beginning.
Okay, so you look at this project as mainly your project that you've kind of put all the creative effort into.
Sometimes lately, I've wanted to have everyone have more input in it, because when I do write a song, I tend to have almost the whole thing done, and you present it and it's almost all there, but I've tried just throwing out bits here and there to where we can build off of that. And I'd like it to be more of a collaborative thing. It's much cooler when everybody gets involved. Like the new single that we're putting out in a couple weeks, probably one of the most collaborative efforts we've had, and it definitely shows.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. You sent the single over to me and gave me the chance to listen to it. Give me a bit of background about how it came to be and what you're kind of hoping to accomplish with it.
I wrote it's a kind of a pandemic song. I wrote the music about 5 years ago when we were locked down. I didn't intend on it being a Mob Day song. I just was back then, especially when I was, I didn't leave my house for like 2 or 3 months. So I was just writing every day. And that one, the working title of it was Extra Cheese because I thought it was a really cheesy song. Typically, I like the guitar parts to move a little bit. Like I mentioned, Every Time I Die before, they're one of my favorite bands, and I love playing their type of stuff. And just not trying to be a virtuoso, but I like to move a bit. And this one was a little more straightforward, so I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do anything with that. And then a few months ago, we were just kind of digging through the hard drives to see what we had that we could work on, and everybody kind of unanimously liked that one, which I was very surprised at because I told them, I was like, I seriously thought I deleted this.
All right. So tell me about what you guys are up to. You mentioned that you're kind of looking for material to put together. Are you working on an album to put out, or are you kind of just doing the like single releases for like a consistent presence?
Yeah, I think the singles thing is kind of, I don't even want to say the future. I feel like that's kind of been what the business has been for the last couple of years. Albums are cool and we still like them. I love when bands put them out, but realistically, we just kind of figured the more singles we put out in a year, the more, like you said, more presence we can have with that. I would like to put another album together. We put one out a couple of years ago and just takes a lot of time. And sometimes when it drops, it's kind of like Christmas morning when all your presents are open. It's like there's nothing else to do. So at least with these singles, I feel like we can get, little bits of promo every month or every couple months that we put something out.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
the singles sound more fun.
there's no wrong way to do it. It's just there's different ways to go about it. You're absolutely right that when you put an album out, you're kind of left with, well, what do we do now? As to where doing single releases kind of, they put you in a better position to have consistent releases and feed the algorithm and get in people's ears.
Yeah, and I think the fun part about them too, like with an album, you try to have it sound like a cohesive unit. Like you don't want it to be all over the place. You kind of want it to feel like a collection of things that were happening in that moment. But with singles, we can kind of play around. Like I said, I wasn't the biggest fan of this song that we're about to drop. Like it took me a minute to really start feeling it, but I think that's the beauty of like the singles is we can play around and experiment and see like, did this sound work? Cool. We can expand on this a little bit. Or if that didn't work, it's like, oh, well, it's just one song.
Sure, yeah, you're not wholly committed to the concept of it.
Yeah. And if you got 12 songs out that tank and you got to sell those for the next 2 years, it's, that's a little harder.
Right. That's a good point as well. All right. So tell me some of your favorite memories surrounding music from all the time you've been learning and playing music that have really kept you motivated.
Well, what keeps me motivated is I don't feel like the best musician at what I do. I feel like I'm always learning. I think all musicians would say the same thing. I hope like it's just you can always get better at it, and being constantly inspired to get better at my craft. Like when a new band comes out that I like, that kind of, pushes me to play harder, learning new songs, writing new stuff, just anything to keep me motivated in that way. But to answer the question, a memory that keeps me going with it, really just, I think the first time I learned a song and it all kind of clicked, then suddenly the world started making sense. And then that translated into my very first show with my first band. It's the one memory that's extremely vivid that I'll never forget. I remember when the lights went out and you started to hear people like start to cheer a little bit. And I was like, oh, like this is what this is. So I could get used to this. So after that, I just decided this is my everyday life.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a perfect connection point to kind of figure out that you're on the right path too. All right. Well, where can people find you and your project and follow along with your releases?
Well, the new single will be coming out everywhere. It's called Control. It'll be on all the streaming sites, anything you want to use. But I encourage people to check out the Bandcamp. We have a special edition coming out for that. It's going to be 3 songs instead of just the single. You'll get an instrumental version of the song and then a demo that we never released from our first record. So just kind of a cool way to see a little behind the scenes there too for people that like that. And it'll also include a digital poster of the lyrics with some cool artwork, a digital album cover that we actually autographed digitally so everybody can get that. And what else is on that one? Oh, and it's got exclusive artwork too. So the artwork you'll get at Bandcamp isn't going to be anywhere else. And the digital stuff, it's kind of an experiment. This could totally do absolutely nothing, but I just thought with physical media kind of not being the thing anymore, we have like the poster and the autograph that comes with it, and it's kind of like at your leisure. It's like if you want to print it and frame it, go for it. If not, you can save it to your hard drive and look at it whenever you want.
Awesome. Yeah, that's also a good way to go about doing promotions and stuff. All right. Well, so I always like to give the person I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last word. So, what's a message that you have that you want other people to hear?
Man, I would say enjoy anything you do, whether it's music or any kind of art, whatever it is. Just be happy you have those talents and support others around you that you enjoy. If you like a band or an artist, give them your support. We all need it, whether the band is big or small. Any little bit helps. Tell your friends about it, and be cool to everybody because everybody is cool.